Welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I founded an eco-conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, I don't just make pottery, I make resources such as books and courses for other potters who want to be more eco-conscious in their pottery practice. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about me sharing everything I've learned with you, and I can't wait to get started. Let's go! Hello, so before we get on with the episode, I wanted to tell you about two completely free guides that I've made just for you about pottery. And the first guide is called How to Make a Pottery Glaze. So if you've ever been curious about how to make your own pottery glaze, this guide will show you exactly how to make your own glaze from start to finish. It tells you all the ingredients you need. It tells you step by step how to make the glaze, how to stay safe when glaze making, and it's got a stoneware glaze recipe in there. And if you've been curious about how to fire pottery, I have also made a guide on electric kiln firing. So this guide will tell you all the different terms that's used in like kiln firing, and what they mean, and it also takes you through the exact firing schedule that I use to do my bisque firing and also stoneware glaze firing. So it's got all the temperatures in there, all the timings in there, and both of these guides are available from the Oxford Clay website at www.oxfordclay.co.uk/resources for potters. Okay, let's get on with the episode. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and really looking forward to today's episode because we're going to be talking about leather hard clay and like what leather hard clay is, what you can do with leather hard clay, and yeah, I actually have to say leather hard clay is probably my most favourite state of clay because it's just so kind of versatile and it's very strong, and you can just do so much with clay at the leather hard stage. It's such a good stage of clay. So I just wanted to pop in here on this episode and just sort of say what leather hard clay was, just in case this is something you've maybe heard and you're not sure what it is, or just to talk about leather hard clay, or maybe you do know what leather hard clay is but you don't know all the different things you can do with leather hard clay. So I thought let's talk about leather hard clay on this episode. So firstly, what is leather hard clay? Right, okay, so clay has different states of different states that it goes into when it's at different stages of dryness. Okay, so if we think about like wet clay, that's probably the stage, maybe that from making something with wet clay. So wet clay is the stage when clay is like, most malleable. You can throw pots on the wheel with it. You can, hand build stuff with it. That is like wet clay. But if the clay dries out a little bit more, it goes to what's known as leather hard. Okay, so leather hard clay is when if you touch the clay, it's not going to leave like the imprint of your fingerprint in there. It's kind of much more robust. It keeps its shape, but it's not completely dry. So completely dry clay is often known as bone dry clay. It's not that, but it's the stage before clay actually dries. So it's a little bit drier than wet clay, but it's not completely dry. So it's not, so you can still actually do stuff to it. So you can do mark making with it. You can, build things with it. It's a very versatile stage of clay. So if you feel leather hard clay, it will be kind of like quite sort of, it's a bit harder than soft wet clay. It will keep its shape, like I said. It'll be a bit drier, so it won't be wet to the touch. It will be sort of, it's I guess like leather. I don't know about leather making. There must be a reason it's called leather hard. um, but it won't be completely dry. It will also be kind of a darkish colour. So completely dry clay often goes a much lighter colour, and completely wet clay will often be like a darker colour. It's still kind of towards the darker colour because it's still got water in it. Okay, so right, things you can do with leather hard clay. So like I said, it's such a versatile stage of clay. So often what you'll have to do is, say if you're building like a pot made of slabs, you'll actually often have to wait until your clay goes to the leather hard stage to build your slab pot. And that's just because, like, you know, wet clay is just too weak. It just won't hold its shape if you try and sort of put different slabs of clay together. So what potters often do is you'll see them like rolling out some clay into like a flat, you know, wet clay in a nice flat sort of shape, using maybe rolling guides, a rolling cloth. They'll roll the clay out, and then what they do is they leave it to get leather hard before cutting out the shapes and then joining all the shapes together. Or they might cut out the shapes when the clay's wet, but then they'll wait until the leather hard stage to actually build their slab pot. So slab pots is something that you can make with leather hard clay. So you're basically taking pieces, say like if you're making like a pyramid or something, you've got those like triangles, and then you've got like the base, and you're going to be joining that clay with slip. So that you're scoring, and then you're putting on the slip to join those pieces of slab pottery together. So with leather hard clay, you can join it together. You can smooth leather hard clay. You can smooth edges together. You can make really, really solid joins, but it's just going to hold its shape better. So that's something you can do. You can build things, you know, again, if you're doing a sculpture, like a hand-built sculpture, you can add bits on if it's leather hard. It's much easier to kind of, if you're carving bits away as well. So carving into leather hard clay is something that potters do as well. We'll take bits away, or, you know, add on a complete other bit. Say like you're making this really weird image just came to mind of, say you're making like an octopus. I'm just going to say it, this thing just popped in my mind, an octopus, and you've got all the different legs. You can join those legs on, you know, at the leather hard stage. You're making a sculpture, you're making, say, like a tree where you're making the trunk and the top or something, making a sculpture of a tree. You can add on, you know, branches at the leather hard stage. You've got the trunk, or, you know, you've got the leaves, or, you know, the foliage bit. You can add all those on. You can make them all separately and join them all together at the leather hard stage. So yeah, the next thing you can do at the leather hard stage is, if you are throwing pottery on the pottery wheel, you can turn the base of the pot when the pot is leather hard. So this is the optimum time to turn the base of a pot. You can't really turn the base of a pot. Also, I think some potters I've heard call this stage trimming the pot, but in my pottery classes we always called it turning. And it's basically when you cut the pot off the wheel, and then you turn the pot upside down, and then you're going to be like carving the base. You're going to be carving a foot in that pot. That's the kind of thing you need to do at the leather hard stage. So if you try and do that when you've just made the pot, you cut it off, you can't do it straight away. It's just going to collapse the pot. There's no way you can do trimming, turning until the pot is at the leather hard stage. So, okay, another thing you can do at the leather hard stage is that you can actually scratch in decoration. So you could get some kind of sharp implement, or like a pen, or like a old biro or something. You can scratch lettering into pottery at the leather hard stage, you know, using maybe like a pottery needle maybe as well. You can also add designs. You can add, like, say, a design you've made in like a sprig mold or something. You can add that on at a leather hard stage. Again, you're attaching things on with like slip. So you just, you know, making sure there's a really strong join there. You can also do some decoration, like you can do slip trailing. So you may have seen potters, or, you know, maybe you've seen pottery done where it's got like different colors, and they're like almost like a raised design, like someone has kind of trailed a kind of, like, you pipe on a kind of a slip, like, so you're piping on a kind of liquid slip which has been coloured with different like metal oxides, colouring, you know, could be like colouring stain or something, and that's mixed into like a slip, like a runny slip, and then that's trailed on pottery to make a design. That's done also at the leather hard stage, and then the pot is left to dry properly, and it's fired, and then like a clear glaze is put over the top. So those are the kind of like just trying to think. Oh yeah, sorry. You can actually cut away different parts of clay as well when you have a leather hard pot. So if you want to, I saw this person once at a class I was in. They were making like a kind of nightlight holder. It was so beautiful for like a candle, and they basically made a pot and then they cut out loads of shapes in that pot to kind of let the light shine through. And that is a really good thing to do at the leather hard stage. So your pot is very strong. But you can still cut parts out of it. So so removing little sections from pots, you know, cutting little designs into a pot, that is really a really good thing to do at the leather hard stage as well. So I'm just having a little look to see if I've got all the points, all the things I wrote down about things you can do when the pot's leather hard. Yeah, okay, so let's go through those again. Slab building, sculpting by cutting away parts of clay. You could turn the bottom of a pot you've made on the wheel. You can scratch a design into the pottery. You can do slip casting with leather hard clay. Sorry, slip trailing, not casting. That is a whole different thing. That is like making the pot out of slip. So slip trailing, I've got slip casting on the brain. I just think about slip casting. So yeah, you can do slip trailing, where basically you're creating a design by kind of piping slip onto leather hard clay. You can add different things together, different components. So, you know, say like you're making something, an animal with like legs or something, you can add those parts like together, you know, composite, sort of hand-built sculpture. You can do that at the leather hard stage. So as you can see, there are so many different things you can do with clay at the leather hard stage, and it's such a versatile, fantastic stage of pottery. So the last thing I wanted to say is that you can actually keep your pot at the leather hard stage for longer if you do something like, if you say cover it with a plastic bag, or if you put it you know, somewhere where it's going to stay damp. So in the pottery class I used to go to, the evening class, we used to actually cover our work with a plastic bag, and then we used to put it in this thing called the damp cupboard, and that would keep it leather hard, or, you know, keep it sort of like, you know, in the stage that you could still work on it. If it was like, you know, if you just made it, it would sort of turn it into like the leather hard stage, hopefully by the next week. So it would keep it wet from week to week, so we could still work on our work, because you couldn't really say like, you know, join bits of clay together if your pot was dry, and you couldn't turn the bottom of a pot if your pot is dry as well. So it was like, it would keep it like nice and leather hard from week to week. We would keep it in a damp cupboard. But if you're you know, if you're say like making pottery at home or something, you don't have a massive damp cupboard and you don't want to squash your work with a plastic bag, you can actually put your work in plastic storage boxes. So say for example, you know, say like you can get these things from like the supermarket or the hardware store, where you're you know, they're built for like storing things in, like, you know, storage boxes, basically storing kind of like I guess you can also use Tupperware boxes as well if your pottery is quite small. Yeah, I guess for like, you know, storing clothes in or shoes in or something, and that's what they're actually for. But they work really, really well to keep your pottery damp from when you've worked on it to when you can work on it next. So that would be my absolute top tip for keeping your pot leather hard. Yeah, it's really good. It doesn't squash your work as well, because sometimes when you wrap it up in a plastic bag, it can actually like squash your work, especially if you've like just made it. So putting it in a box, in a plastic box, I've sort of just called them damp boxes. They are really, really good. It's like a really good way of like yeah, maintaining the leather hardness of your pottery. Yeah, oh great. So yeah, it's so nice to talk to you about leather hard clay. Like I said to you, it's my favorite type of clay. It's a favorite stage of clay because it's just so versatile and it enables you to do like so much, you know. It's such a brilliant stage of clay, and it's often as well easier to not kind of break your pottery, like make things go wrong, you know, like when you've just made a pot or something and it's wet clay, it's very easy to knock it, and then you've just like kind of, you know, put a dent in your pot and stuff. So So leather hard clay is just so much more like robust. It's so much like, it's a great stage of clay because it's like, yeah, just much more difficult to make things go wrong at the leather hard stage. Yeah, oh cool. So yeah, well, I better stop talking about leather hard clay, and so wishing you very happy potting until the next episode of the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing you then, and until then, wishing you very happy potting, like I said, and I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me for the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Oxford Clay or eco-conscious pottery, there's so much for you on the Oxford Clay website. There's books, e-courses, there's a blog on there, loads of other podcast episodes, and I can't wait to share it with you. The web address is oxfordclay.co.uk. I'll see you over there.